The fortress of Illyrian was too quiet. Even the wind seemed afraid to breathe. Then the first roar came, deep, raw, and full of agony. It rattled the stone walls and sent a flock of ravens screaming into the grey sky. Rhea Vale froze in the corridor, the basket of herbs trembling in her hands. She had heard stories about the cursed king, but hearing him, feeling his rage shake the ground, was another thing entirely. "Get back," a guard shouted, running past her with a spear. "The king's curse is raging again." Rhea pressed herself against the cold wall as more soldiers rushed toward the northern courtyard. She shouldn't be here. Omegas like her weren't allowed in the royal wing, not since the council decided they brought unsettled energy. But the kitchens had run out of fever leaf, and her job was to deliver what they needed, no matter the screams echoing through the halls. She tried to move, she really did, but curiosity anchored her feet. Through the archway, she saw him. King Cale Ardent. He was chained to the ancient stones at the courtyard's center, massive iron cuffs glowing faintly blue as they strained against his strength. His body was half-shifted, skin streaked with black veins of magic, eyes burning red. Each breath was a growl, every movement violent. Blood trickled from his wrists where the enchanted chains bit deep. "Hold him," someone yelled. "Hold him," another soldier barked. His tearing through God-forged steel. Cale lunged forward, the chains snapping taut. The impact cracked the ground. A few soldiers stumbled back, terrified. Rhea clutched her basket tighter, heart hammering. "Why don't they let him rest?" she whispered, mostly to herself. A woman beside her, an older servant, gave a panicked shake of her head. "Rest. If he rests, he'll kill us all. The curse eats his mind when he stops fighting it." Rhea's throat tightened. He didn't look like a monster. Not really. He looked like a man drowning in something he couldn't control. Another roar ripped through the courtyard, sharp and despairing. The sound hit Rhea so hard that tears sprang to her eyes before she understood why. Pain, not her own, pulsed through her chest. Something in her spirit recognized the torment in his voice. "Move back," a knight ordered. "Everyone out." But Rhea didn't move. Her feet carried her closer instead, step by trembling step, until she stood at the edge of the courtyard. "Rhea," hissed the kitchen master from behind her. "Are you insane? Heal." The rest of the warning vanished as Cale's head snapped up. His burning eyes locked on her. The world stopped. For a heartbeat, everything went silent. Soldiers froze mid-movement, even the chains stilled. Cale stared at her like he was seeing something he hadn't known existed. His expression flickered, fury, confusion, then something almost like recognition. Rhea's lips parted, but no sound came out. The mark on her wrist, the faded rune her old pack carved there when they rejected her, began to burn. It pulsed in time with the king's heartbeat, though she couldn't explain how she knew that. "Who are you?" Cale's voice was gravel, rough from roaring. "What are you doing here?" She swallowed hard. "I only came to." Another surge of pain tore through him. The chains snapped again, sparks flying as he fought them. Guards shouted, magic flared, and yet Rhea felt something deeper, an instinct whispering stop fighting him. Before she could think, she dropped her basket and ran forward. "Stop her," someone yelled. She didn't listen. Her body moved on its own, pulled by something ancient and unexplainable. The air around Cale shimmered with heat and energy. He thrashed, snarling like a wounded wolf. Rhea stumbled to a halt just out of reach. "Please," she whispered. "You don't have to fight anymore." His gaze snapped to her again, red eyes flickering between rage and confusion. "Stay away," he growled. "I can't." The chain on his right arm shattered. Screams erupted. Soldiers raised their weapons. Cale lunged. Rhea did the unthinkable. She stepped forward and pressed her palm flat against his chest. Instant silence. The roar died mid-sound. The wind stopped. Even the torches seemed to dim. Cale froze, his muscles locked, his eyes widening. The crimson drained away from his irises, leaving them pale silver, clear and human again. Rhea's entire body trembled. Warmth spread from where she touched him, flowing through her arm like sunlight. The anger, the pain, the chaos inside him, she felt it all, then felt it ease. It was like standing in the eye of a storm and watching the world go still. He took a ragged breath. What did you do to me? Rhea didn't know. I just wanted you to stop hurting. His hand rose, hesitant, covering hers. The gesture was both fragile and desperate. His heart thundered beneath her palm, strong and real. Don't let go, he whispered. I won't, she said without thinking. For a moment, they stayed like that, a cursed king and a rejected Omega, bound by nothing but touch. Around them, soldiers stared in open disbelief. Release the chains, Kale ordered quietly. Your Majesty, the general began. I said release them, Kale repeated, voice calm for the first time in weeks. When the shackles fell away, Kale didn't move. He just stood there, still holding Rhea's hand as if she were the only thing keeping him sane. Rhea couldn't feel her legs. She stood frozen before the most powerful man in the kingdom, and he was looking at her like she was the only person alive. The soldiers whispered among themselves. Impossible, she calmed him. She touched him and lived. She must be a witch. Rhea's breath caught. Witch. The word carried death in it. She tried to pull her hand back, but Kale's grip tightened, not harsh, just firm. Don't run, he said softly. Please. I'm not, her voice shook. I didn't mean to do anything. I swear. You did something, Kale murmured. For the first time in years, the rage is gone. He turned his head slightly, addressing the guards. Leave us. But, sire. Leave. The quiet authority in his tone made even the bravest knight obey. Within seconds, the courtyard emptied until only Rhea and the king remained among the broken chains. Rhea swallowed. You should rest. I'll go. No, he stepped closer. You can't go. The way he said it, low, almost pleading, made her chest ache. Why? Because when you're near, I can think, he said simply. When you touched me, the darkness stopped whispering. I've tried potions, spells, even bloodletting. Nothing worked until you. I'm nobody, she said. I'm not even part of a pack anymore. He studied her face, his expression unreadable. Nobody doesn't do this. He lifted his wrist. The wounds where the chains had bitten him were already closing. Tell me your name. Rhea Vale. Rhea, he repeated quietly, as though testing the sound. A healer. Just a gatherer, she corrected. I bring herbs from the outer woods. His gaze flicked to her wrist. The mark, he said. Who did that to you? She instinctively hid it under her sleeve. It doesn't matter. It matters to me. It was my pack, she admitted finally. They said I was too weak, too small, and my wolf never appeared. They called me useless. So they carved that rune to mark the rejection. She tried to smile, but it trembled. Guess they were right. A wolfless Omega isn't worth much. Something dark flickered in Kale's eyes, not rage, but sorrow. They were wrong. Before she could reply, a harsh voice echoed from the courtyard gate. So, it's true. The cursed king has found himself a new toy. Rhea turned sharply. A tall woman in black armor strode in, sharp-eyed, beautiful, cold. The king's advisor, Lady Varin, known for her cruelty. Guards trailed behind her, uncertain whether to interrupt. Your Majesty, Varin said stiffly. The council heard the disturbance. Should we prepare containment wards again? No, Kale said. Her gaze slid to Rhea. Then you mean to tell me this? Servant girl calmed you with a touch. He nodded once. Varin's lips curled. How convenient. A nobody Omega performs a miracle no sage could achieve. Perhaps she bewitched you. Rhea's stomach twisted. I didn't. Enough. Kale's tone cut through the air. No one will harm her. Not while I breathe. Varin stiffened. Sire, the council. I'll deal with the council. His voice softened as he looked back at Rhea. Go with the healers. Rest. You're shaking. Rhea realized she was trembling from head to toe. Her legs barely held her. You should let them bind you again, she said weakly. In case the rage returns. It won't, he said. Not while you're near. The certainty in his voice made her heart trip. You don't even know me. I know peace when I feel it. His expression softened further. And I haven't felt it in years. Rhea opened her mouth to argue, but the warmth in his eyes silenced her. It wasn't the look of a king, it was the look of a man desperate to believe he wasn't doomed. She nodded slowly. Then I'll stay. For now. A flicker of relief crossed his face, so raw that she looked away, suddenly shy. That night, the fortress buzzed with rumors. Servants whispered that the Omega girl from the outer woods had saved the king with nothing but her hands. Some said she was blessed by the moon goddess, others claimed she'd cursed him worse. Rhea sat in a guest chamber, too grand for her taste, staring at the fire. Her hands still tingled from touching him. Each time she blinked, she saw his eyes turning from red to silver. A soft knock sounded. "Enter," she said. Cale stepped inside, dressed in dark clothes instead of armor, his presence filling the room. The flames reflected in his silver eyes. "You should be resting," she blurted. "So should you." "I thought kings didn't make personal visits to servants," she said before she could stop herself. He smiled faintly, a real, human smile. "I'm not here as a king." "Then what are you?" A man trying to understand why an Omega half his size stopped a curse that slaughtered 20 men. Rhea swallowed. "I don't have an answer." He walked closer, stopping a respectful distance away. "When you touched me, what did you feel?" She hesitated. "Pain. Rage. Loneliness. Like standing in a storm that wanted to swallow you whole. And you didn't run." "I couldn't," she admitted quietly. "It felt like something inside me needed to help you." "Needed?" His brow furrowed. "You didn't choose." "I don't know," she said truthfully. "It was like something old was calling me." He studied her in silence for a long moment. "Rhea Vale," he murmured, almost to himself. "You may have just changed the fate of this kingdom." Her breath caught. "What do you mean?" He turned toward the window, the moonlight tracing the lines of his face. "The curse that lives in my blood, it was said only a sanctuary could still it. But that bloodline died centuries ago." "Sanctuary," she echoed. He nodded slowly. "A being born of both wolf and moonlight. They could calm the rage of gods themselves." "That's impossible," she whispered. "I'm just." "Nothing about you is just anything," Cale said, turning back to her. "You touched me, and for the first time in my life, I wasn't afraid of myself." Silence settled between them, heavy and strange. The fire crackled softly. "Finally," Rhea said, "if what you say is true, then the curse might return." "What happens when I'm not near?" "Then I'll find you," Cale said simply. Something in his tone, steady, certain, made her heartbeat stutter. She looked away quickly. "You don't even know if I can do it again." "Then we'll find out together." Rhea almost smiled despite herself. "You're very sure of yourself." "No," he said quietly. "I'm sure of you." For a long moment, neither spoke. The world outside the window was still, the moon hanging low over Ilarion like a watchful eye. Rhea knew her life had changed the moment she stepped into that courtyard, though she didn't yet know whether it was salvation or doom waiting ahead. As Cale turned to leave, he paused at the door. "You saved me today, Rhea Vale. And whether you like it or not, that makes you part of my fate." When he was gone, Rhea stared at the closed door, heart pounding. Part of his fate. She didn't know if that was a blessing or a curse, only that something inside her already felt the pull of destiny tightening, soft and unstoppable as moonlight on water. Morning sunlight spilled through the narrow windows of the fortress infirmary. Rhea blinked against it, the memories of the previous day returning like a half-remembered dream, the roar, the chains, the king's eyes turning silver under her hand. She sat upright. Her palms still tingled faintly. The healer who had been dozing nearby jolted awake. "You shouldn't move yet," he warned. "You were near the king during his fit. That alone could have torn your spirit apart." "I'm fine," Rhea said, though her voice trembled. "Where is he?" "The king." "In council already." The healer hesitated. "He asked that you remain here until he sends for you." Rhea looked around the small room. A plate of food rested beside her bed, untouched. Someone had left fresh clothes too, soft linen instead of her usual patched tunic. Too much, she thought uneasily. "I don't belong here." Before she could protest further, a guard appeared at the doorway. Miss Rhea Vale, he said formally. His Majesty requests your presence. The council chamber was grander than anything she'd ever seen, banners of crimson and gold, polished marble floors, and a throne that looked carved from living stone. 12 nobles sat at a long table, their expressions as cold as the crown itself. King Kale stood at the head, dressed in dark armor that caught the light like storm clouds. When he saw Rhea, the tension in his shoulders eased slightly. "Gentlemen, ladies," he said, "this is the woman who silenced the curse." Murmurs erupted instantly. "She's an Omega," one counselor hissed. "A dangerous one," added another. "Perhaps the curse merely transferred." Kale raised a hand. "Enough. I am clear-minded because of her. If you value this kingdom's safety, you will treat her with respect." Rhea's pulse raced. She had never been addressed in a royal meeting, much less defended by a king. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "I didn't do anything special. I only touched you." "And the chains stopped breaking," Kale replied. "You don't call that special?" The council exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, Lady Varin, tall, silver-haired, and sharp-eyed, spoke. "If her touch can control you, sire, then she can destroy you. We cannot allow an untrained outsider that kind of access." Rhea opened her mouth, but Kale spoke first. "She saved me when none of you could. She stays." Lady Varin's gaze turned to Rhea, assessing. "Then at least let us test her nature. Every wolf has a counterpart, even the weakest Omega. If she has none, we will know she carries something unnatural." Kale's jaw tightened. "You will not harm her." "No harm," Varin said smoothly. "Merely proof." Later, in the temple courtyard, Rhea stood inside a circle of runes while a priest held a crystal bowl of silver liquid. The rest of the court watched from a safe distance. Kale remained close enough that she could feel the weight of his stare. "Place your hand here," the priest instructed. "If a wolf spirit answers, the water will shimmer white. If none answers," he didn't finish the sentence. Rhea hesitated, then touched the surface. The liquid went still, too still. The crowd began to whisper. Seconds passed, then a minute. Nothing. "There," Lady Varin said. "No wolf. No lineage. She is an empty vessel." Rhea's cheeks burned. The old shame clawed its way back. Useless. Wolfless. Rejected. But before the priest could step away, the bowl quivered. A faint silver ripple spread from where her fingertip touched. The water didn't shine white, it glowed with soft starlight, as if a piece of the moon had melted inside it. The light hummed once, then vanished. The priest stumbled backward. "That is, not a wolf's mark." Kale's voice was low but steady. "Whatever it is, it kept my kingdom from falling apart." He offered Rhea his hand. She hesitated, then took it, letting him guide her away from the murmuring crowd. When they were out of earshot, she asked, "What does it mean?" "That you are different," he said. "And different has always frightened this court." They walked through the gardens in silence for a while. The morning air smelled of rain and iron. Rhea finally said, "When they called me wolfless, I believed them. Maybe they were right." Kale stopped beside a marble fountain. "Look at me." She met his gaze reluctantly. "Yesterday I was a beast in chains. Today I stand before you sane. If that is the work of someone wolfless, then perhaps the rest of us have been blind." The words warmed something deep inside her, though she tried not to show it. "I don't know why my touch helped." "Then we'll learn together," he said, and for the first time she saw not the cursed king but the man underneath, tired, burdened, yet strangely gentle. That evening, Rhea returned to her small guest room. The corridor outside buzzed with gossip again. "She's a spirit witch." "No, a goddess reborn." "Or bait." "The curse is pretending to sleep." She shut the door and leaned against it, exhaling. "What have I done?" The moon hung large outside her window, silver light spilling across the floorboards. As she watched it, the mark on her wrist shimmered faintly, the same starlight hue she'd seen in the priest's bowl. She pressed her hand against it, whispering, "Who am I really?" The mark pulsed once, like an answer she couldn't yet understand. The next morning, Kale met Rhea in the courtyard. He wore no crown, only a simple black cloak. Walk with me. They passed through narrow corridors until they reached the outer gates. Beyond lay the city of Valerian, its rooftops gleaming after last night's rain. Rhea had never been this close to the royal wall's edge. From here, she could almost imagine freedom. You should see what you saved, Kale said quietly. When the curse takes me, the rage spreads. The land itself sickens. Last month 3 villages burned. Today, he gestured to the horizon where smoke no longer rose. Today the air is clean. Rhea watched the sunlight break through the clouds. I didn't mean to be part of any of this. I know. His tone softened. Sometimes fate drags us whether we're ready or not. They walked a little farther. Market bells rang faintly from below, and for a fleeting moment Rhea forgot about chains and curses. Then the sound of horses thundered from the main road. Guards hurried forward, shouting. A column of riders in crimson armor approached, their banners marked with a blood-red crescent. Kale's expression darkened. Bloodshade Pack. The lead rider dismounted, a tall man with bronze hair and a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Your Majesty, he said smoothly. Forgive our sudden visit. Word travels fast, a miracle healer has tamed the cursed king. I came to offer congratulations and to reclaim what is mine. Rhea's stomach turned cold. She knew that voice. Lord Malric, she whispered. He turned toward her, pretending surprise. Ah. So it's true. My former Omega is here. I wondered where you'd crawl off to after we dismissed you. Kale stepped forward, a low growl in his throat. Watch your words. Come now, sire, Malric said, feigning innocence. Under pack law, an incomplete rejection still binds the lesser mate. She bears my mark. That makes her bloodshade property. I am not property, Rhea said sharply before Kale could speak. You carved that mark when you cast me out. And you never completed the severance, Malric replied. Which means your king is harboring another pack's subject. Dangerous territory. Kale's power rippled through the air like thunder. If she is bound, then I claim guardianship until the matter is proven. Malric's smile thinned. A king challenging pack law? How entertaining. The tension drew spectators. Soldiers and servants gathered along the walls. Lady Varin arrived, face unreadable. Sire, perhaps we should bring this dispute before the High Council. No, Kale said. He challenges my right to protect her. Let him do it properly. Malric's eyes gleamed. You propose combat, Your Majesty? Kale nodded once. Old law. At dusk. A hush fell. Old law duels were rare now, relics of a bloodier age. They were also final. Malric bowed mockingly. As you wish. But when I win, she returns with me. Rhea's voice cracked. You can't decide that between you. Both men looked at her. For a heartbeat, Kale's expression softened. You have my word, you will not be taken. But Malric was already remounting. We'll see whose word the gods favor. As the Bloodshade riders galloped away, Kale turned to Lady Varin. Prepare the grounds. No weapons, no interference. Rhea grabbed his arm. You can't fight him. You barely survived your last curse. I won't lose control again, he said quietly. Not with you near. I don't want blood spilled for me. He studied her face. This isn't only for you. He insulted the crown and the sanctity of choice. If I allow that, the curse might as well still rule me. She stepped back, shaken by the calm in his tone. Then at least let me help. How? I don't know yet, she admitted. But if my touch calms you, maybe it can strengthen you too. He hesitated, then nodded once. Then stay close at sunset. By late afternoon the whole fortress buzzed with restless energy. The dual arena, a ring of ancient stones once used for coronations, had been cleared. Torches waited unlit for the coming dusk. Kale stood at one end, silent, centered. Rhea watched from the shadows, clutching the edge of her cloak. Across the circle, Malric laughed with his men, confident and cruel. Lady Varin approached Rhea quietly. You care for him, don't you? Rhea flushed. He's my friend. The advisor's smile was faint. The king has few of those. Just be careful. Power that calms can also destroy, if pushed too far. Rhea didn't understand until the first gong sounded. Kale and Malric stepped into the circle. The air shimmered as the runes activated, sealing them inside. The crowd fell silent. Malric struck first, a blur of motion. Kale blocked easily, but each impact sent sparks flying, both men partly shifting, claws glinting. Dust rose, torches flared to life. Rhea could feel the heat of the curse stirring beneath Kale's control. His eyes flickered red for a heartbeat, then steadied. She pressed her palm against the protective barrier. "Hold on," she whispered. The duel raged. Malric fought dirty, knee strikes, feints, taunting words. "Your savior watches, cursed king, show her what kind of monster you are." Kale's composure cracked. His aura flared scarlet. The ground trembled. Without thinking, Rhea stepped past the guards. Her voice cut through the roar. "Kale, look at me." He froze mid-swing. Their eyes met through the shimmering barrier. She lifted her hand, palm outward. The mark on her wrist glowed bright silver. The light passed through the barrier like water, touching his chest. The red in his gaze dulled to gray. His next strike was clean, decisive, controlled. One motion, and Malric hit the ground, disarmed. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Kale stood over his fallen opponent. "This ends here," he said. "By the law of the crown and the goddess of balance, she is free." Malric glared up at him. "You think the goddess favors you? Wait until you learn why she sent her little miracle." Kale didn't reply. He turned away, motioning for guards to take the beaten alpha back to his camp. As the circle's light faded, Rhea rushed forward. "Are you hurt?" He caught her hand before she could worry over him. "No," he said softly. "Thanks to you." Her knees threatened to give out from relief. "Then it's over." Kale looked toward the blood-red sunset. No. This was only the first warning. He wouldn't have come alone. "Then what now?" He squeezed her hand gently. "Now we find out what you truly are before they do." And as the last light of day slipped below the horizon, Rhea felt the pulse in her wrist answer with a glow like distant stars, an omen that the storm was only beginning. The fortress slept uneasily that night. Rhea woke to thunder shaking the windows, though the sky was clear. She could feel it in her bones, a storm that wasn't weather but tension, something waiting to break. When she opened her chamber door, 2 guards stood there. One bowed stiffly. "His Majesty requests your presence in the war hall." "Now?" she asked, startled. "It's the middle of the night." "Now," he repeated. The war hall was a map of flickering candlelight and anxious faces. Kale stood at the center table with his captains. Across the spread of parchment, small carved wolves marked enemy positions. "They've moved camps closer to our borders," one captain reported. "Bloodshade troops disguised as traders." Kale's jaw tightened. So Malric didn't return home. Rhea stepped quietly into the room. "He's planning something." Kale looked up, relief flickering briefly in his eyes before the hardness returned. "Malric never loses graciously. He's gathering allies. My spies say he's telling Pax that the cursed king has fallen under a witch's control." The room fell silent. Several officers shifted uncomfortably. "A witch," one muttered. "Sire, it spreads fast, people believe it." Kale slammed his hand on the table. The map pieces jumped. "She saved my life, not bewitched me." The captain bowed his head. "Of course, Your Majesty." Rhea swallowed the sting in her throat. "Let them say what they want. I didn't come here to win their approval." Kale turned to her, softer now. "Their whispers are dangerous, Rhea. Fear breeds rebellion. I can protect you from swords, not from rumors that travel like fire. I'm not afraid." Her voice steadied as she met his gaze. "If I ran every time people called me cursed, I'd never have survived my first rejection." The faintest smile touched his mouth. "You're braver than half my generals." Lady Varin entered then, her expression carved from stone. "Forgive the intrusion, sire, but there's more. A messenger from the Oracle Lysera arrived an hour ago. She demands audience at dawn." Kale frowned. The Oracle hasn't left her temple in decades. Then something stirs the old magic again, Varin said. She asked for both of you. Rhea blinked. For me. Yes, girl. She said, the light must meet the storm before the eclipse falls. Whatever that means. Kale rubbed his temple. It means nothing good. By morning, grey mist hung over the mountains as their small escort rode toward the temple cliffs. The wind smelled of rain and old stone. Rhea rode beside Kale in uneasy silence. He glanced at her once. You slept little. So did you. I'm used to it, he said with a tired grin. You're not. She shrugged. I had dreams. Strange ones. What kind? I saw a wolf made of light walking beside a man in shadow. When it looked at me, it had no eyes, just stars. He didn't answer right away. The oracle may tell us what it means. When they reached the temple, the air itself felt older. Crystals embedded in the cliffs pulsed faintly as if breathing. At the center of the courtyard stood Lysera, slender, white-haired, eyes like clouds. She smiled as they dismounted. King Kale, she said. You bring your salvation and your doom in the same breath. Kale bowed slightly. You've seen her in your visions, then. I've seen her long before she was born, Lysera said, turning to Rhea. Welcome, child of the hidden moon. Rhea felt suddenly small. I don't understand. The oracle touched her marked wrist. You will. This mark was meant to bind a sanctuary, not reject one. Malric's rune didn't erase your power. It buried it. Kale's eyes narrowed. Then she truly is. Lysera nodded. A sanctuary of light. The last. The moon's balance given flesh. Rhea took a step back. No, I'm no goddess or prophecy. I'm just. The oracle's hand rose. Denying what you are will not change what you've awakened. When you touched the cursed king, you reopened a bond that was sealed before time, the link between fury and peace. Together, you could either heal this realm, or destroy it. Rhea's stomach turned. Destroy. If the balance tips too far. Sanctuary light magnifies what it touches. Calm the wrong heart, and it will become addicted to peace. Anger the wrong spirit, and the world burns. Kale's voice was low. And Malric? Knows enough to be dangerous, Lysera said grimly. He seeks to twist your gift into a weapon. If he takes you. He won't, Kale cut in. Not while I breathe. The oracle smiled faintly. Then breathe carefully, my king. The curse may be dormant, but it is not gone. Her light tames it, her absence will awaken it anew. Rhea looked between them. Then what do we do? Lysera's gaze softened. You learn what you are. And you learn fast. Because before the next full moon, war will come to your gates. They left the temple in heavy silence. Clouds gathered overhead as though the sky itself had overheard the prophecy. Halfway back, a hawk messenger found them, the bloodshade seal burned into its wing. Kale broke the wax, read the small scroll, and swore under his breath. What is it? Rhea asked. Malric's army has crossed the border, he said grimly. 5,000 strong. By the time they returned to the fortress, banners of warning already flew over the towers. The city below buzzed with frightened rumors. Kale ordered the gates closed and the troops mustered, but Rhea could see the weight pressing on him. His curse was quiet, too quiet, like a beast holding its breath before it struck. She followed him into the strategy chamber. Maps and scrolls covered the table, and a dozen voices argued at once. We can't hold the western wall. Evacuate the villages. Send for reinforcements. Silence, Kale said. The word carried enough power to still them all. We defend the border until I say otherwise. Then he turned to Rhea. You'll stay inside the fortress. That's not up for debate. I can help, she said quickly. The oracle said I can strengthen. She said your power can magnify things, he interrupted. If you lose control, you could make the curse worse. Maybe, she admitted, but if I don't try, we lose anyway. Their eyes met. For a long moment, neither spoke. Finally, Kale exhaled. Then we do this together, but under my command. That night, thunder rolled across the sky. Rhea couldn't sleep. She wandered through the dim corridors until she reached the oldest part of the castle, a hall carved directly into the mountain. Strange runes glimmered faintly along the walls, pulsing with slow light. She traced one with her finger, feeling it thrum beneath her skin. "You shouldn't be here." Cale's voice echoed softly. He stood at the entrance, lantern in hand. "I couldn't sleep," she admitted. "What is this place?" "The archive," he said, joining her. "Built by my ancestors. It holds the records of the first curse and the first sanctuary." They walked among ancient tapestries and stone tablets. On one, a vast wolf of shadow knelt before a smaller figure made of silver fire. "That's her," Cale said quietly. "The first sanctuary. The goddess's messenger who bound the rage of kings." Rhea touched the carving. "She looks human." "She was," Cale said. "Until the curse took her mate. Then she became light itself to save him." Rhea turned. "Is that what you think I am supposed to do? Turn into light to save you?" He met her gaze steadily. "I think you already did." She looked away, uneasy. "What if I fail next time?" "Then we fall together," he said simply. "But not without fighting." Before she could reply, the sound of clanging metal echoed from above. Shouts followed. Cale stiffened. "They're here." They raced up the stairs. The fortress was chaos, bells ringing, guards shouting, arrows streaking through the night. Rhea caught a glimpse of red banners through the outer gate flames. Bloodshade. Cale drew his sword. "Stay behind me." They reached the ramparts just as a thunderous crash shook the walls. The main gate buckled under a battering ram. Malric's voice carried over the roar of battle. "Cale, surrender the girl, and I'll spare your city." Cale's growl was pure steel. "Come take her yourself." Rhea's heart pounded. Soldiers rushed to defend the gate, but the sheer number of attackers overwhelmed them. Flames licked the lower courtyard. Suddenly, the mark on her wrist burned white-hot. Energy surged through her veins, wild and brilliant. She stumbled, clutching the wall. Cale turned, alarmed. "Rhea. I can feel them," she gasped. "All of them, the fear, the fury. It's like every emotion is screaming at once." He reached for her, but she raised a hand. "No, wait. I can use it." Before he could stop her, she stepped forward and pressed both palms to the stone wall. The glow spread outward, racing along the fortress's runes like lightning. A blinding silver dome erupted over the gates, halting the next wave of fire. The soldiers froze, stunned. Arrows bounced harmlessly against the barrier. Cale stared. "You did that." Rhea swayed, exhausted. "I think so. For now." He caught her before she fell. "You're burning yourself out. Better me than everyone else," she whispered. From beyond the barrier, Malric shouted again, furious. "Hide behind your witch, Cale. Her magic won't last forever." Cale carried her down from the ramparts to the inner hall. The glow around her dimmed as she fought to stay conscious. "Rest," he said firmly. "You've done enough." "No," she murmured. "The oracle said we're bound. If the curse wakes again, you'll need me." "I'd rather fight the curse alone than see you break," he said. His voice softened. "You're not my shield, Rhea." "I'm not your weakness either," she replied weakly. "Maybe I'm the balance she meant." He looked at her then, something like awe and fear mingling in his eyes. "Balance," he repeated. "Yes. Maybe that's what you are." Outside, lightning split the sky, and the silver barrier flickered faintly. The first assault had failed, but more would come. The fortress of Valerian stood between peace and ruin, and in the quiet before the next storm, Cale held the girl who might be its salvation or its undoing. The rain that had threatened all night finally came with dawn. The sound of it against the fortress roofs was steady, heavy, almost peaceful after the screams of battle. Rhea woke in the infirmary again, a faint ache running through her arms. She remembered the light that had poured from her hands, the silver wall rising above the gates, Cale's voice calling her name. The door creaked open. Cale stepped inside, cloak dripping, hair dark with rain. He looked exhausted but alive. "You should still be asleep," he said. "I couldn't." Rhea pushed herself up on the pillows. "How bad is it?" The outer gate held. "Your shield gave us time to drive them back." He smiled, but it was thin. "Half my men think you're a saint now." The other half think you're a weapon. Which do you think? I think you're the only reason we're still standing. He sat beside her bed. You risked yourself when I told you not to. I couldn't just watch people die. He studied her face for a long moment. I understand. But promise me something, Rhea. If the curse ever rises again, if you see me change, you run. She shook her head. No. Rhea. I'm not leaving you in chains again, she said firmly. You promised to fight beside me, remember? That goes both ways. His eyes softened. You are impossible. I've been called worse. A faint laugh escaped him, surprising them both. The tension in the room loosened for the first time in days. For a while they just listened to the rain. Then Cale reached into his cloak and set something on the table, a small silver ring carved with moon symbols. It belonged to my mother, he said. She wore it when she bound the curse each full moon. The oracle believes its metal carries the same energy that runs through your light. Wear it. Maybe it will help control the surges. Rhea turned it between her fingers. You trust me with something that valuable? I'd trust you with my life before I'd trust anyone else with that ring. She slipped it onto her right hand. The cool metal pulsed once, syncing with her heartbeat. Then I'll keep it safe, she said softly. Cale rose, cloak sweeping around him. Rest. I have to meet the generals. When he reached the door she said quietly, Cale? He looked back. You said once that my touch gave you peace. What does it feel like now? He hesitated, searching for words. Like standing at the edge of a storm and knowing it finally has somewhere to go. The fortress settled into an uneasy calm. Repairs began, refugees filled the courtyards, and every evening Cale rode patrols along the ruined walls. Rhea spent her hours with the healers, mending burns and cuts until her own hands shook from exhaustion. At night she practiced with the ring, learning how to call the light without losing control. She discovered that emotion guided it, fear made it flare too bright, kindness steadied it, anger turned it sharp as glass. It frightened her a little, but it also thrilled her. For the first time she felt power that was hers, not borrowed, not stolen. One afternoon as she practiced in the empty hall, Cale appeared behind her. You've been avoiding the training yard. I didn't know I was invited. He handed her a short wooden staff. Every warrior is. Even those made of light. They sparred clumsily at first. Cale's movements were measured, patient, Rhea's were uncertain but quick. When she overbalanced he caught her wrist automatically, and the moment their skin touched, the light answered, spilling faint silver between their hands. He didn't let go immediately. It happens every time, he murmured. Maybe it's trying to tell us something, she said. Or warn us. They stood too close for a heartbeat, the air thick with things neither dared say. Then Cale stepped back, clearing his throat. Enough for today. That night the fortress dined together for the first time since the siege. The hall glowed with torchlight, laughter cautious but genuine. Rhea sat among the healers, trying not to feel out of place. When Cale entered, every voice stilled. He raised a cup. To those who stood against darkness, he said. And to the light that kept us alive. His eyes found Rhea's across the room. The hall erupted in cheers, but she hardly heard them. Something wordless passed between them, gratitude, maybe, or promise. She looked away before anyone noticed, heart racing. Later, as the feast ended, thunder rolled again, though the skies were clear. Cale excused himself abruptly. Rhea followed, worry tightening in her chest. She found him on the battlements, hands gripping the stone, breath uneven. It's the curse, he said through clenched teeth. I can feel it waking. Rhea reached for him. Then let me. No. You'll drain yourself. Cale, please. He turned, eyes flickering crimson for a moment. Rhea. Without hesitation she caught his face between her palms. Light burst from her hands, pouring into him, burning through the shadow like sunlight through fog. When it faded, he sagged forward, catching himself on the wall. It's gone, he whispered, stunned. Just like that. Rhea trembled, breathless. It takes both of us, Cale. That's what the oracle meant. Balance. He looked at her with new understanding and fear. Then if something happens to you, it won't, she said. Because you'll make sure it doesn't. Days passed without attack. But peace in Ilarion never lasted long. Scouts brought word of strange fires burning in the north, villages emptied overnight. Kale prepared his armies again. Rhea helped coordinate the healers, though each new report of destruction set her nerves on edge. One evening, while studying maps in the library, she found an older parchment folded behind the newer ones. It was brittle with age, ink faded almost to nothing. The heading read, Prophecy of the Two Flames. She read aloud under her breath. When wrath meets light, the world will tremble. Should the bond be forged in truth, peace eternal. If forged in fear, ruin unending. Kale's voice came from behind her. You found it. She jumped. You knew. I hoped it was only a story. He stepped closer, scanning the words. But the oracle quoted it once. Two flames, one of rage, one of mercy. Together they could end the curse or become one greater than it. Which are we? She asked quietly. I don't know, he admitted. But I feel the fire every time you're near. He reached out, fingertips brushing the silver ring he'd given her. The metal flared with heat. Rhea gasped as light spilled between them, spiraling upward like threads weaving together. The entire library brightened for a heartbeat, then went dark again. They stared at each other in the sudden quiet. Did we just, she began. Bind something, he finished. Perhaps. Rhea's heart raced. That wasn't supposed to happen. Maybe it always was, Kale said. The bond doesn't ask permission. Before she could answer, a guard burst through the doors, panting. Your Majesty, riders from the north. They bear bloodshade colors. Kale's expression hardened. He's testing the borders again. Tell the captains I'll meet them in the yard. The guard hurried away. Kale turned back to Rhea. Stay inside the walls. Not this time, she said. If Malric has found a way to use the curse against you, I need to be there. He hesitated, then nodded once. Then you ride with me. By dusk they reached the outer ridge overlooking the valley. Torches dotted the opposite slope, hundreds of them. Malric's voice rang out, amplified by magic. Kale ardent. You hide behind your new priestess, but the old laws still rule. Come down and face me, or I'll burn every village under your protection. Kale spurred his horse forward a few paces. You've already lost one duel, Malric. Do you crave another humiliation? Not humiliation, proof. Malric lifted a glass vial that glowed blood-red. Essence of wrath. Distilled from your own soldier's fears. Let's see if your witch can tame this. He smashed the vial against his chest. Red fire crawled over his skin. His eyes turned black. The air filled with the smell of iron and smoke. The curse that haunted Kale now lived in his rival. Kale drew his sword, but Rhea felt the heat radiating even from this distance. He'll kill everyone, she whispered. Not if I can stop him, Kale said and leapt from his horse, striding toward the valley. Rhea followed despite the guards' protests. By the time she reached the base of the hill, the two men had collided, steel against steel, sparks flying. Each blow sent shockwaves through the earth. Malric fought like a man possessed, laughing through blood. Your rage made me strong, Kale, he shouted. Every bit of darkness you tried to bury, I drank it. Kale's strikes grew wilder. Rhea felt the curse stirring again inside him, fed by the reflected fury. If both lost control, Ilarion itself would burn. Kale, she cried. Listen to me. He didn't hear. Shadows crawled up his arms, his eyes glowing faint red. Rhea ran forward, ignoring the heat that blistered the ground. She reached him just as Malric swung again. Her light flared between them, blocking the blow. The world erupted in white. When the glare faded, both men were on their knees, smoke rising from the scorched earth. Rhea stood between them, silver light running through the cracks in the ground like rivers. Kale looked up at her, astonished. What did you do? I stopped choosing between fury and peace, she said, voice steady though her hands shook. I took both. Malric snarled, struggling to his feet. Then you're no better than me. Maybe, she said. But I choose what to become. The light surged again, wrapping around him. When it vanished, he lay unconscious, the red fire extinguished. Kale caught Rhea as she swayed. "You're bleeding," he said. "It's only light," she whispered, faint smile on her lips. "It always costs something." He looked at her, really looked, and something unspoken passed between them again, the same quiet promise they'd been circling for weeks. Then, softly, he said, "You once asked what your place was here. It's this. You're the proof that even monsters can change." Rhea closed her eyes, letting the words sink into her like warmth after a long winter. Around them, the valley smoke began to clear, and for the first time in years, the stars shone bright over Ilarion. Morning light crept across the battlefield, touching the burnt grass and broken armor until the whole valley shimmered with the dull glow of smoke. Rhea woke where she had fallen beside Kale. Her head throbbed, but the sky was clear and silent. No drums, no shouts. Only the wind. Malric's soldiers had scattered overnight. The red banners lay torn in the mud. Rhea pushed herself up, dizzy. Kale was already standing a few paces away, his cloak singed, sword planted in the ground. "It's over," she murmured. "For now," he said quietly. "They'll carry stories back to every corner of the realm about a king who fought with light beside him." He turned toward her, a faint smile crossing the tired lines of his face. "You saved us again. I just did what I had to. That's the difference between duty and courage," he said. "You didn't have to. You chose." Before she could answer, a low humming rolled through the valley. The scorched earth trembled. Kale stiffened. Magic residue. Too strong to be his alone. Rhea followed his gaze. In the far distance, a black mist seeped from the ground where Malric had fallen. It coiled upward like smoke from a dying fire, twisting into strange shapes that whispered. Kale's hand tightened on his sword. "That's the curse trying to find a new vessel." "Then we can't let it," she said. They climbed the ridge where Malric's body had been. His armor was shattered, the red glow gone, but his chest still rose faintly. The black mist hovered over him, seeking an anchor. Rhea stepped closer, the silver ring on her hand pulsing warm. "Stay back," Kale warned. "If it spreads, it will find someone else anyway," she said. "Maybe I can contain it." She knelt beside the fallen rival, pressed her hand to the ground, and closed her eyes. Light and darkness surged together, painful, loud, almost unbearable. She saw flashes, Malric's memories, his envy, his fear of being ordinary, his longing to prove himself. All the things that had fed the curse. When she opened her eyes again, the mist was gone. In its place lay a faint silver shimmer, already fading. Malric breathed once more and went still. Kale knelt beside her. "You took it into yourself, didn't you?" "Not all of it," she said. "Just enough to quiet it." "Rhea. I'm fine." She forced a shaky smile. "Mostly." He studied her, worry in his eyes, but said nothing. Instead, he rose and looked to the horizon where the fortress towers waited. "Let's go home." The ride back to Ilarion was long and quiet. Villagers lined the roads, cheering the returning soldiers. But when they saw Rhea riding beside the king, whispers rippled through the crowd. "That's her, the moon-blessed one." "No, the cursed witch." "Both, maybe." Rhea tried to ignore it. She told herself it didn't matter, that people always feared what they didn't understand. But by the time they reached the fortress gates, the joy of victory felt thin. Inside the great hall, Lady Varin waited with the council. She looked relieved and wary. "We heard rumors of Malric's death. Is it true?" Kale nodded. "He fell in battle." "And the curse?" "Contained," he said. Her gaze flicked to Rhea. "Contained where, exactly?" Rhea straightened. "In me." Gasps spread around the room. Varin's expression tightened. "Then you brought danger back into our walls." Kale's tone sharpened. "She brought peace back, not danger." "Forgive me, sire, but peace that requires constant restraint is no peace at all." The advisor's voice lowered. "If she falters, what stops that darkness from consuming her and through her, you?" Rhea looked down at her hands. The silver ring still glowed faintly, proof of the power moving under her skin. "I'll find a way to control it," she said. "If you let me try." Kale placed a hand on her shoulder. She will be trained under my watch. Varin bowed stiffly. As you wish, my king. But if she loses control, the council will act. After they left the hall, Rhea whispered, they'll never trust me. Kale gave a weary smile. Then we'll show them why they should. Training began at dawn the next day. The oracle's words echoed in both their minds, learn balance or be undone. Kale taught her focus, how to breathe through chaos, how to turn fear into clarity. In return, she taught him how to still the curse with light before it grew too strong. Some mornings they practiced until sunrise, some nights until the stars vanished. Slowly, Rhea began to understand the rhythm between them, the way his rage fueled her light, and her calm steadied his storm. Together they formed something neither magic nor weapon could match. One evening after training, Kale handed her a dagger with a handle of pale crystal. Not for battle, he said, but for control. The blade's metal is mixed with your light's resonance. If the darkness overwhelms you, pierce the ground. It will draw the curse out. She nodded, tucking it into her belt. I hope I never have to. So do I, he said quietly. But hope alone never stopped the darkness. That night, as she walked through the courtyard, Rhea heard a strange whisper near the old stone well. She froze. A soft black mist curled along the stones. Her pulse quickened. Not again. The mist shifted into a shadowy figure, Malric's shape, faint and wavering. His voice was a breath. You think it's over? You took me inside, girl. But you can't bury what doesn't die. Rhea stepped back. You're not real. Part of me is, it hissed. You carry it. A seed. And when it grows, it will consume him first. The mist lunged. Rhea drew the dagger and slammed it into the ground. Silver light flashed, scattering the shadow into smoke. When the glow faded, the well was quiet again. Kale found her moments later, breathless from running. I felt your power flare, what happened? Malric's shadow, she said. Or what's left of him. It's inside me. He took her hands, steadying her. Then we fight it together. Like always. Even if it kills me. His voice was firm. Especially then. The next days blurred into anxious preparation. The oracle sent word from her temple. The seed of darkness must be cleansed where it first took root. That meant the catacombs beneath the fortress, the place where the original curse had been forged centuries ago. Rhea and Kale descended into the tunnels at dusk, carrying only lanterns and courage. The air grew colder with each step, walls damp and carved with fading runes. The further they went, the heavier the air became, until even the light of the lanterns seemed to bend. This is where your ancestors bound the curse, Rhea said softly. Yes, Kale replied. My blood keeps it alive, and your light weakens it. Fitting that we end it here. They reached a vast underground hall. In its center stood a black stone altar, cracked and humming faintly. Around it lay ancient chains, rusted but still warm to the touch. Rhea placed a hand on the stone. A pulse shot through her arm, echoing in her chest. It's calling. Can you contain it? Maybe, she whispered. But I'll need your strength. Kale stepped beside her, placing his hand over hers. Always. They closed their eyes. The chamber filled with twin lights, silver from her, crimson from him, spinning together in a spiral of fire and calm. The air roared, stones vibrating. The ancient chains rose like snakes, wrapping around the altar once more. Rhea felt the darkness inside her stir, fighting back. Pain ripped through her. Kale, I can't. Yes, you can. Breathe with me. She did, matching his rhythm. Light poured from her ring, brighter, purer, until the shadows screamed and broke apart. The black stone split down the center with a blinding flash. Then silence. The curse's hum was gone. Rhea sagged against him, trembling. Is it done? Kale helped her to the floor. I think so. The air smelled of rain again, clean and new. For a long moment they sat in the quiet ruins, neither speaking. Then Kale said softly, You did what no king could. We did, she corrected. He smiled. We did. They climbed back to the surface just before dawn. When they emerged onto the battlements, the first sunlight broke through the clouds. For the first time in memory, the land beyond the walls was green instead of grey. The soldiers waiting there fell silent as they appeared. Kale raised his sword, sunlight flashing off the blade. "The curse is broken," he announced. "Illyrian is free." Cheers erupted, echoing across the city. Rhea stood beside him, watching as people embraced and laughed. But inside she felt an unfamiliar emptiness, the silence where the darkness had been. It was almost peaceful, yet lonely too. Kale noticed. "What is it?" "When the curse left, it took part of me with it," she said quietly. "I don't know who I am without it." "You're the light that ended it," he said. "That's who you are." She looked up at the brightening sky. "Then maybe it's time to learn what light does when there's no darkness left to fight." Kale's expression softened. "Whatever you decide, you won't face it alone." That evening, the fortress bells rang not in warning but celebration. Lanterns lined the streets, and people sang songs that hadn't been heard in generations. Rhea walked among them in simple clothes, unrecognized, content to listen. The joy felt fragile, but real. From the balcony above, Kale watched the crowd. When Rhea joined him, he handed her a cup of spiced wine. "To endings," he said. She raised her cup. "And beginnings." They drank in silence, the city glowing below. For a long time neither spoke. Then Kale said quietly, "When I first saw you, I thought you'd be my undoing. And now?" He smiled faintly. "Now I think you're the reason I'm still here." The moon rose full above them, its light reflecting off the repaired towers. Somewhere in the distance, thunder rolled, not the sound of war, but the promise of rain on a healed world. Rhea leaned against the railing, breathing the clean air. The silver ring on her hand shone softly, no longer pulsing with power, just light. "Balance," she whispered. Kale glanced at her. "What?" She smiled. "The oracle said we'd have to learn it. I think we finally did." And for the first time since the cursed king had met the rejected Omega, there was no roar, no fear, no chains, only peace, steady and quiet, settling over Illyrian like dawn after a long night. The days following the curse's destruction were filled with celebrations that stretched from dawn till moonrise. Every street of Illyrian glimmered with banners, music, and laughter. Children painted silver circles on their hands in honor of Rhea, though most had never seen her face. From the balcony of the council hall, Rhea watched the city glow like a constellation come alive. The sound of bells echoed through the valley, bright and triumphant. Yet beneath all that joy, she felt an odd stillness inside, like an echo waiting for an answer. Kale joined her quietly, his dark cloak trailing behind him. The mark of the curse no longer shadowed his veins, his eyes were purely silver now, calm and clear. "You should be down there with them," he said softly. She smiled faintly. "They're celebrating the end of a nightmare. They don't need me reminding them what it cost." "They're celebrating because of you," he corrected. "You gave them hope." "Hope," she murmured. "Strange word. It feels heavier than it used to." Kale studied her. "You've been distant since the ritual." "I'm fine," she lied. He didn't press. Instead, he placed something small in her hand, a pendant shaped like a crescent moon. "A gift. For when you forget what light looks like." Rhea turned it over. "Where did you get this?" "It belonged to the first sanctuary," he said. "The oracle sent it." "She said you'll need it soon." Rhea frowned. "Need it for what?" Before Kale could answer, the sound of hooves thundered through the courtyard below. A guard rushed up the steps, breathless. "Your Majesty, the oracle's temple is burning." Kale's face went pale. "When?" "An hour ago." Witnesses saw black fire rise from the cliffs. Rhea's stomach twisted. "But the curse is gone." Kale's jaw tightened. "Then something worse has woken." They rode through the night. The path to the temple glowed faintly with ashen embers. By the time they reached the cliffs, the sky above them was bruised with smoke. The temple's crystal pillars lay shattered, light still flickering weakly between the ruins. Rhea jumped from her horse and ran toward the center of the courtyard. The once silver mosaic of the moon goddess was scorched black. The scent of burned herbs filled the air. At the base of the altar, the oracle lay collapsed, her robes torn and charred. Rhea knelt beside her. "Lysera." It's me, Rhea. The oracle's eyes fluttered open, glowing faintly blue. The darkness wasn't destroyed, she rasped. It was divided. Kale crouched beside them. Divided how? Part of it went into her, the oracle whispered, nodding weakly toward Rhea. But the rest, it fled east. It's seeking a vessel strong enough to house what remains. Rhea's heart pounded. Then we have to stop it. There's more, Lysera said. Her hand trembled as she reached for Rhea's pendant. The balance you created saved this realm, but the energy drew something ancient. A being that sleeps beneath the world, the first shadow. It will awaken through the broken curse. Kale's expression darkened. A new threat. No, the oracle said. The oldest. It existed before kings or wolves, before the goddess herself chose sides. Her breath came shallow now. Find the heart of the world, beneath the sea of glass. Only there can the shadow be sealed again. Where is that? Rhea asked. The oracle's eyes dimmed. You'll know when the light inside you trembles. And with that, the glow in her eyes faded completely. Rhea stared at the still form, her hands shaking. We can't lose her too. Kale stood slowly, his voice low but steady. Then we won't let her death be for nothing. He looked toward the horizon, where the ash-colored sky met the black hills. We find the sea of glass. They buried the oracle beneath the cliffs at sunrise. The ocean below was calm and silver, reflecting the first light like a mirror, a reminder that peace and grief often shared the same face. As they prepared to leave, Kale said quietly, the eastern border stretches past the highlands. Beyond that, nothing but ocean. Rhea nodded. Then that's where we start. He looked at her, hesitant. You don't have to come. I was part of ending the curse, she said. That means I'm part of whatever comes next. Kale almost smiled. Then we go together. For weeks they traveled east, through mountain passes and forests still scarred from years of war. The further they went, the quieter the world seemed, too quiet. Villages were empty, birds gone, rivers dark. Something unnatural lingered in the air, as if the land itself held its breath. One evening they camped beside a frozen lake. Rhea sat by the fire, staring into the flames. Do you think we'll ever have peace, Kale? He looked up from sharpening his blade. Peace isn't something you find once. It's something you keep fighting for. And if the fighting never ends, then at least we keep choosing to stand. She nodded, then fell silent, listening to the crackle of the fire. But beneath it, she heard another sound, a faint whisper curling through the air. Rhea. Her head jerked up. Did you hear that? Kale frowned. Hear what? The whisper came again, faint but insistent. You can't run from what's inside you. Rhea clutched her pendant, heart racing. The voice was familiar, her own, but darker. She shut her eyes, forcing her breathing to slow. It's nothing, she said. Just the wind. But as the flames flickered, she saw her reflection in them, and for a heartbeat, the eyes staring back weren't hers. They reached the eastern cliffs a week later. Before them stretched an expanse unlike anything Rhea had ever seen, a vast, frozen plain that shimmered like crystal, reflecting the sky so perfectly that it was impossible to tell where earth ended and heaven began. The sea of glass, Kale said quietly. It's real. Rhea stepped forward, boots crunching on the icy surface. The air here was different, thin, humming, alive. Every step she took echoed like a heartbeat beneath her feet. The oracle said the shadow sleeps beneath this, she murmured. Kale knelt and touched the surface. Then it's under us. As he stood, the wind shifted. A deep rumble rolled across the plain, faint at first, then growing until the entire ground vibrated. Cracks spidered out from where they stood, glowing faint red beneath the ice. Kale, Rhea said, backing away. Something's moving. Before he could respond, the ice shattered. A column of black light erupted from the center of the plain, spiraling upward like a storm. The force threw them both backward. Rhea hit the ground hard, pain shooting through her side. When she looked up, a figure was rising from the fissure, tall, cloaked in shadows that pulsed like living smoke. Kale drew his sword, the blade gleaming silver in the strange light. Stay behind me. The figure's voice was a whisper and a growl all at once. Child of light. King of wrath. You broke your curse and thought yourselves free. Rhea's chest tightened. Who are you? I am what was left behind when the goddess sealed the balance, it said. I am what the world forgot to destroy. Kale's stance never wavered. The oracle called you the first shadow. And she was wise enough to fear me, it hissed. The light inside you is mine by right, it was born of my fragment when the world was new. Rhea's pendant glowed fiercely. You're lying. Am I? The shadow extended a hand. The air around her shimmered, and for an instant she saw flashes, a vision of light splitting from darkness, the first sanctuary born from that fracture. The shadow's laughter echoed. You are my creation, child. The light is merely darkness that learned to pretend. Kale lunged, sword blazing. The blade struck the figure's chest and passed straight through. The shadow turned, its voice almost pitying. You can't kill what isn't alive. Then the ground erupted. Kale was thrown back, crashing into a ridge of ice. Rhea screamed his name, but he didn't move. The shadow turned to her. Your choice decides the world, little light. Join me, and I will give you peace. Resist, and you will watch everything you saved crumble. Rhea staggered to her feet, blood running from a cut on her brow. You want my power? Then come take it. She raised her pendant. Light exploded outward, flooding the plain. The shadow recoiled, roaring. But the brilliance faltered almost as quickly, the silver glow dimming to grey. Too strong, she thought. I can't hold it. Then Kale's voice cut through the storm. Rhea. He was standing again, battered but unbroken. His sword burned crimson now, the remnants of his curse turned to fire. You're not alone. Rhea met his gaze and understood. Light and rage, calm and fury, together. Balance. She clasped the pendant with one hand and reached for Kale with the other. The moment their fingers touched, silver and red fused into gold. The power roared between them, steady and wild, neither consuming nor breaking. The shadow screamed. Fools. You'll destroy yourselves. Maybe, Kale said, but not our world. The light surged upward, engulfing everything. The sea cracked, the sky split open, and for a heartbeat the whole world seemed to hold its breath. Then, silence. When the light faded, the plain was still. The cracks had sealed, the darkness gone. Rhea stood swaying, Kale's arm around her shoulders. The shadow's presence had vanished completely, leaving only faint streaks of golden light frozen in the ice. Did we do it? She whispered. Kale nodded slowly. It's over. They stood there as the first dawn light spilled over the horizon, turning the entire sea to liquid fire. Rhea felt something deep inside her settle, not emptiness this time, but peace. Real peace. Kale turned to her, voice soft. So what now, sanctuary of light? She smiled faintly. Now. We go home. The world's tired of fighting. He smiled back. And maybe, we finally learn how to live in it. Together, they began the long walk across the shining plain, their reflections stretching beside them, one of shadow, one of light, walking perfectly in step. The sea of glass glimmered behind them as Kale and Rhea made their slow return west. Days passed beneath quiet skies, each morning warmer, each night calmer than the one before. For the first time in years, the land felt alive again. Rivers ran clear, grass grew where ash once lay, and the wind carried birdsong instead of the scent of battle. But peace, Rhea soon learned, carried its own kind of silence, one that could be heavy as chains. On the fifth night, they camped at the edge of the highlands. A small fire flickered between them, its orange light dancing on their tired faces. Kale sat sharpening his sword, though there were no enemies left to fight. You keep doing that, Rhea said, nodding toward the blade. He gave a small smile. Habit. Or fear? Kale looked up. Fear. That you'll forget who you were before all this. She poked at the fire with a stick. I think about it too. If I'm not fighting, if I'm not healing something broken, then what am I supposed to do? You live, Kale said simply. You breathe. You let the world remember how to be gentle. She glanced at him, surprised by the softness in his tone. You make it sound easy. It's not, he admitted. But we'll learn. He reached across the fire and placed a hand over hers. Together, remember? Rhea smiled faintly. Together. They reached Illyrian a week later. The city was almost unrecognizable, flowers growing where ruins had been, laughter in the streets instead of rumors of war. The people greeted them not as ruler and savior, but as symbols of hope. Children ran ahead of their horses, throwing petals. Bells rang from every tower. Lady Varin met them at the gates, her usual severity softened by relief. Your Majesty. Sanctuary. We feared you gone. We nearly were, Kale said, dismounting. But it's finished. She nodded, eyes bright. Then the kingdom stands free for the first time in centuries. Rhea's gaze swept the streets. Free, yes. But changed. The world will want to know what comes next. Then let them ask, Kale said. And we'll answer with peace. The council gathered that evening. Kale sat at the head of the long table, Rhea beside him. The nobles looked uneasy, power always made them nervous when it wasn't theirs. My lords, Kale began, the war is over. The curse is gone. The oracle's warnings have passed. But if we cling to the old ways, we will only invite another darkness. Varin leaned forward. What do you propose? A new accord, Kale said. No more castes by rank of birth. Omegas, alphas, sanctuaries, no more titles that bind one life beneath another. We build a council chosen by worth, not lineage. The room erupted in murmurs. That's impossible. The Pax will rebel. You'd tear down centuries of law. Kale stood. Centuries of law gave us centuries of suffering. I won't rule a kingdom that feeds on fear. His voice echoed through the hall, leaving only silence. Then Varin said slowly, if this is the path forward, the council will follow. But the people must believe in it. They'll need a symbol. All eyes turned toward Rhea. She blinked. Me. Varin inclined her head. You carry the light that ended the curse. If you speak for this accord, they'll listen. Rhea hesitated. I'm no queen. No, Kale said quietly, but you're the reason we still have one. The council agreed. The announcement would come at sunrise. That night, Rhea couldn't sleep. She wandered the gardens, the moonlight spilling over marble paths. The silver ring on her finger still glowed faintly, though its power had gone quiet. She stopped beside the reflecting pool, staring at her rippling reflection. For the first time, she saw no mark of rejection, no shadow of a curse, just a girl who had survived. Kale found her there. You should rest. I will. I was just remembering. He stepped beside her. Their reflections merged in the water, light and dark, side by side. Do you regret it? He asked softly. All of it, she said. No. But sometimes I wonder what I'd be if the world hadn't broken first. He was silent for a long moment. I used to wonder that too. Now I think maybe we're not meant to be who we were before. Maybe we're meant to become something new. Rhea looked at him, the reflection of the moon caught in her eyes. Something new, she repeated. I like that. They stood in silence until dawn began to pale the sky. When the first light touched the horizon, Kale said, it's time. The square before the palace overflowed with people. Farmers, soldiers, traders, nobles, every kind of face filled the streets, drawn by the rumor that the cursed king and the moonlit girl would speak of the world's rebirth. Rhea stood on the steps beside Kale, heart pounding. She had faced storms, curses, and shadows, but never this many eyes. Kale took her hand. You ended the curse, he murmured. You start the world. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. My name is Rhea Vale, she began, her voice carrying across the silent square. Once, I was called wolfless. Rejected. Worthless. But the truth is that no one is born without worth. We only forget it when fear blinds us. The crowd shifted, listening. I've seen what happens when we divide ourselves by strength or birth. We become our own cages. We let anger rule. We let darkness grow. But I've also seen what happens when we stand together. Even curses can break. She looked toward Kale, then back at the people. So today we choose something different. We choose unity. Not alpha or omega, not ruler and servant, just people, sharing the same light. A murmur of agreement rippled through the square. Someone began to clap, then another, until applause rolled like thunder. Kale stepped forward. From this day, Illyrian will no longer be a kingdom of fear. The new accord stands a promise that every voice matters. That no power, no curse, no birthright will ever define us again. He drew his sword, turned it downward, and plunged it into the stone steps. Let the old laws rest. The crowd erupted. Bells rang, horns sounded, and for the first time in living memory, cheers rose not from conquest but from hope. Rhea stood motionless, overwhelmed. Kale leaned close and whispered, "You gave them this." She smiled. "No. We did." The days that followed were busy with rebuilding. The old council disbanded. New representatives from every province gathered to draft the Accord's laws. Rhea helped heal the wounded and train others to harness minor traces of light magic that had begun to appear among the people. The balance she and Kale had restored seemed to awaken something dormant in everyone. Yet not all were ready to embrace the change. One evening, while walking through the courtyard, Rhea found Kale speaking with Varin in hushed tones. "The border packs resist," Varin said. "They claim the old ways were safer." Kale frowned. "Then I'll go speak to them myself." Rhea stepped forward. "You shouldn't go alone." "I won't," he said. "You're coming with me." They rode east again, though this journey felt different. No longer a march to war, but a mission of understanding. They reached the mountain passes by nightfall, where the border packs waited in uneasy silence. An elder stepped forward, grey-haired and proud. "King Kale," he said, "we owe you no obedience. The curse that bound us is gone, but so is the bond that kept your throne." Kale dismounted calmly. "I don't ask obedience. I ask peace. And if peace demands we forget who we are, then remember differently," Rhea said, stepping beside him. "Remember strength as something that protects, not dominates. Remember unity as survival, not surrender." The elder studied her. "You're the girl of light." "I'm just a girl who learned what fear can destroy," she replied. "And what hope can build." The old man's expression softened. Perhaps the world has room for such a girl. That night, they shared food around a single fire. For the first time, border and crown broke bread together without swords drawn. When Kale and Rhea returned to Illyrian weeks later, the kingdom was already changing. The city gates were open to travelers from lands once considered enemies. New markets flourished. The air was filled not with rumor but laughter. Rhea stood on the palace balcony that evening, watching the sunset spread gold across the rooftops. Kale joined her quietly, as always. "You did it," he said. "We did it," she corrected. He smiled. "You'll never stop saying that, will you? Not as long as you keep forgetting it." They watched the horizon for a long while. The air was cool, scented with blooming flowers. Finally, Rhea said softly, "Do you ever wonder what comes next?" "Always," he admitted. "But for the first time, I'm not afraid to find out." She turned toward him, the fading sunlight catching the silver ring on her hand. "Then maybe this is what peace looks like," she said. "Not the absence of storms, but knowing we can survive them." Kale nodded. "And build something beautiful after." Below them, the city lights began to glow one by one, a constellation of hope reborn. The cursed king and the girl of light stood side by side, watching their kingdom breathe again. And though neither spoke it aloud, both knew this was not the end of their story, only the beginning of a world they had remade together. A year passed. Illyrian flourished under the new accord. The once cursed kingdom became a symbol of unity across the lands. Traders came from distant shores, scholars filled the libraries again. Even the air seemed lighter. But peace, Rhea knew, was fragile. It had a way of hiding cracks beneath its brightness. The first sign came with the wind. A hot, dry gust swept through the city one afternoon, scattering petals from the palace gardens. The healers said crops had withered in the southern fields overnight. By morning, entire lakes had begun to steam under a sun that burned too fiercely. When Rhea visited the archives, she found Kale already there, reading through the oldest scrolls. "You felt it too?" she asked. He nodded grimly. The land is shifting. The balance we restored, it's faltering. That's impossible. We sealed the shadow. Maybe we sealed a shadow, he said quietly. But not the root of it. Rhea frowned. What do you mean? Kale turned one of the brittle scrolls toward her. A faded illustration showed the world split in two halves, light above, shadow below, connected by a thin thread. The curse, the darkness, even the first shadow, they were fragments of the same force. If one side grows stronger, the other weakens. So all this heat? Is the world rebalancing itself? He met her gaze. The light is overwhelming the dark. She blinked. We caused this. Not by choice, he said. But by ending the shadow, we tipped the scale. Silence filled the room. Rhea felt the air shimmer faintly around her fingertips, warmth gathering there. The power she had carried since the curse ended was changing, no longer gentle, but fierce, restless. What happens if the balance breaks completely? She asked. Kale's expression darkened. Then the light becomes what it once fought, a fire that consumes instead of heals. Rhea closed the scroll. Then we find a way to stop it. We restored balance once, we can do it again. Kale hesitated. There's one place left that might hold the answer. The Crystal Vale. The valley beyond the eastern mountains. He nodded. It's where the moon goddess was said to descend when the world first began. If any place remembers the true balance, it's there. Rhea exhaled slowly. Then we go. They rode east for 3 days. The land grew stranger with each mile. Rivers shimmered with gold instead of blue. Trees glowed faintly under moonlight. At night, Rhea dreamed of endless fields of light stretching beyond the stars, whispering her name. On the 4th morning, they reached the cliffs overlooking the Crystal Vale. It was breathtaking, a vast basin of luminous stone and silver lakes, glowing softly as if lit from within. Yet at its center, a dark scar split the ground, radiating heat. Kale dismounted first. That's where the imbalance is strongest. Rhea followed, shielding her eyes from the brightness. The closer they walked, the hotter it became. Light shimmered in waves around them. Then, suddenly, the world tilted. The air rippled and everything went white. When her vision cleared, they stood no longer in the valley but in a great hall of glass. Moonlight poured from above, forming pillars of silver mist. A woman stood at the far end, her eyes aglow like twin stars. The goddess, Rhea whispered. Kale dropped to one knee. Divine One. The goddess smiled, though sorrow shadowed her expression. Rise, King of Wrath. Sanctuary of Light. Rhea took a step forward. The world is burning. We need your guidance. I warned the first sanctuaries what balance would cost, the goddess said. When you broke the shadow, the scales tipped. The light must now yield, or all will fade beneath its own flame. Yield? Rhea echoed. How? The fire must be anchored, the goddess said. Returned to its source, the heart that gave it purpose. Rhea frowned. You mean, me? Yes, the goddess said softly. You are its vessel. The light within you must return to the sky. Kale's voice was sharp. You're asking her to give up her life. I'm asking her to give back what was never hers to keep, the goddess replied gently. The light has grown beyond the mortal world. If it remains, it will consume everything. Rhea felt her breath catch. If I do this, what happens to me? You will become what the first sanctuary became, a voice in the stars. Eternal. At peace. Kale took a step forward. There must be another way. There is not, the goddess said. Balance demands sacrifice. The hall shimmered. The vision began to fade. Wait. Rhea called. How do I? Follow the river at moonrise, the goddess's voice echoed. It will lead you home. Then the light vanished, and they were standing once more in the burning valley. Kale turned to her. You're not doing this. Rhea looked toward the horizon, where the silver river cut through the glowing plain. If I don't, everything we saved will die. I won't lose you to the light, he said fiercely. She touched his arm. You won't lose me. You'll just see me differently. His voice broke. Rhea. Kale. She met his eyes. When we broke the curse, You taught me what it meant to fight for life. Let me finish that fight. They reached the river at dusk. It shimmered under the moonlight, flowing not with water but with liquid light, smooth and endless. The air hummed like a song only the heart could hear. Rhea stood at the edge, the pendant glowing brighter than ever. This is it. Kale shook his head. No. We find another way. There isn't one, she said softly. The goddess made that clear. I don't care what she said. I won't let you vanish. Rhea smiled sadly. You can't stop light from rising, Kale. You can only choose how to remember it. He caught her hands. Then remember this, you're not just light. You're human. You're you. You deserve to live. And because I do, she whispered, so does everyone else. The river pulsed beneath them, glowing brighter with each heartbeat. The pendant lifted from her chest, floating between them. Light spread from it in rippling waves, wrapping around them both. Rhea stepped forward, still holding his hand. Come with me to the edge. Kale's grip tightened. If you fall, then I'll pull you up, she said. Just like you did for me. They walked together until the river's glow engulfed them. The world dissolved into pure white. In that infinite brightness, Rhea felt warmth fill her from within, fierce, endless, kind. She looked at Kale, his face illuminated by the light. Tell them I wasn't a queen, she said. Tell them I was just someone who remembered what balance means. He shook his head, tears streaking down his face. No. I'll tell them you were the light that made us human. Rhea smiled. Then she pressed the pendant into his palm, and the river swallowed her in a flood of stars. When Kale awoke, he was kneeling by the riverbank. The water flowed clear again, silver fading into blue. The pendant lay in his hand, cool and still. The night sky above shimmered with new constellations, one brighter than all the rest. Rhea, he whispered. Her voice came faintly on the wind. I'm here. Always. He stood slowly, looking at the dawn rising over the horizon. The air felt lighter, the world calmer. The fires had stopped. The balance had returned. Kale turned toward the city in the distance. You gave everything, he murmured. Now it's my turn to protect it. He rode back to Ilarion as the first sunbeams touched the towers. The people cheered at his return, but he didn't stop to speak. Instead, he climbed the palace steps and held the pendant aloft for all to see. This light belongs to all of us now, he said. May we never forget what it cost and what it gave. That night, when the stars appeared, one shone brighter than any other. The people called it the sanctuary star, a symbol of hope. And when Kale looked at it, he could almost hear her laugh, soft, familiar, eternal. He whispered to the sky, rest well, Rhea Vale. You saved us all. And somewhere far above, the stars pulsed once, as if answering. Seasons passed. Ilarion learned to live under gentler skies. The heat that had scorched the fields faded, replaced by steady warmth. Rivers flowed clear again. Villages that had once been ruins now brimmed with laughter. But peace never filled the space Rhea left behind. King Kale ruled with quiet strength. The people loved him for his fairness, but in the evenings, when the last counselor had gone and the torches burned low, he would climb to the highest balcony of the palace and look toward the stars. One always shone brighter than the rest, her star. He spoke to it sometimes, in the privacy of night. They still tell your story, he would murmur. Children wear silver rings in your honor. The new accord stands strong. You would have liked to see it, Rhea. The star never answered, but sometimes the wind shifted just enough to stir his cloak and he pretended it was her hand. The council insisted he take a new advisor to help rebuild the outlands. Lady Varin had retired to the monasteries, her age finally catching up to her. In her place came Lord Kian of the Western Marches, young, sharp-eyed, and endlessly curious. He bowed deeply before the throne. Your Majesty, the border provinces prosper. The people speak your name with respect. Good, Kale said. They deserve peace. Kian hesitated. Peace is never without a price. You of all people know that. Kale looked up. Meaning the world still remembers the light that fell into the river. And some believe it can be called back. The words froze the air between them. Called back. Kale repeated. There are whispers, Kian said carefully, of fragments of her power scattered through the land. Temples rising, people claiming to feel her voice. Some say if those fragments are gathered, the sanctuary star might descend again. Kale's expression darkened. They would use her name to chase another miracle. Kian inclined his head. Hope and power often wear the same mask. Kale rose from his throne. Find out who spreads this. Quietly. As you command, Kian said. But as he bowed, the faintest smile touched his mouth, one Kale didn't see. That night Kale dreamed. He stood once more by the river of light. The water shimmered gold, calm and endless. A figure stood across from him, faint, almost transparent, but unmistakable. Rhea, he whispered. She smiled. You kept your promise. I tried. You did more than that. Her voice was soft as wind through leaves. The world breathes again because of you. He stepped forward, the river between them. Then come back. Her expression dimmed. I can't. You said you'd always be here. I am, she said, touching her heart. But not the way you wish. The light around her flickered, fading. They're calling to me, she murmured. The ones who try to wake what should sleep. Kale's pulse quickened. Who? But her voice grew distant. Beware the man who builds altars in the name of light. Rhea, he shouted. The vision shattered. Kale woke in his chambers, breath ragged. The pendant, her pendant, lay on the table beside him, glowing faintly. By morning, he had his answer. Reports arrived from the western provinces of a sect calling itself the Dawn Reborn. They preached that the sanctuary's sacrifice had been unfinished, that fragments of her light still lingered and could be drawn back to earth. Their leader, Lord Kian. Kale crushed the parchment in his hand. He used my trust. General Eric bowed low. Shall we send soldiers, sire? No, Kale said, eyes hard. If they're invoking her name, I'll face them myself. The journey west took 3 days. The forests grew unnaturally bright as they neared the mountains, light leaking from the ground like veins of molten gold. At night, the sky pulsed as if echoing a heartbeat. Kale and a small company rode through the final pass and emerged into a vast valley. At its center stood a temple of white stone, newly built, its spire piercing the clouds. Hundreds of people knelt before it, faces uplifted in silent prayer. At the altar stood Kian, robes shimmering with the same unnatural gold. Behold, he cried, the promise of rebirth. The light returns to cleanse the world. Kale dismounted, voice ringing across the valley. You twist her sacrifice into a weapon. Kian smiled. I honor it. You bound the light once. I will free it. The light doesn't belong to you, Kale said, drawing his sword. Nor to you, cursed king. You kept her power in a pendant like a trophy. I bring her back to finish what she began. He raised his hands. The ground trembled. Streams of golden fire burst from the temple's base, swirling into the sky. The air grew hot, blindingly bright. The people cried out as the radiance intensified. Kale shielded his eyes. Stop this, Kian. You'll burn everything. Kian's laughter echoed like thunder. The world was made in fire, let it be remade. The light exploded upward, shattering clouds. And in that brilliance, Kale saw something that froze his heart. A shape forming within the storm, delicate, human, familiar. Rhea. She descended like dawn, hair glowing white gold, eyes still the calm silver he remembered. But the air around her pulsed with too much power, too fierce, too bright. The people fell to their knees, crying, Sanctuary reborn. Kale stepped forward. Rhea. Her gaze found him. For an instant, recognition flickered. Kale. Then her eyes darkened, the light shifting. Why did you bring me back? I didn't, he said quickly. He did. Kian twisted your name. She looked at her hands, light spilling from them like liquid flame. I can feel everything, the sun, the earth, every breath. It's too much. Kale reached for her. Let me help you. Kian stepped between them. Stay back. The light belongs to all of us now. Rhea turned to him, her expression unreadable. You pulled me from peace. For the world, he said. You can save us again. Her voice was quiet, almost kind. I already did. Then she raised her hand, and the light around her flared. The temple's walls cracked, the air burning with energy. Kian stumbled back, terrified. No, wait. You wanted the fire, she said softly. Now see what it becomes. The light consumed him, but instead of flame, there was silence, his form dissolving into dust that glittered briefly before fading. The onlookers screamed and fled. Kale pushed forward through the blinding glow. Rhea, stop. You'll destroy yourself. She turned toward him, trembling. I can't hold it. It's too strong. He grasped her shoulders, the heat searing his palms. Then let it go. I tried, she whispered. But they called, and it answered. Kale looked into her eyes, the same eyes that had once calmed his curse. You told me once the light was balance, not power. Remember that. Her breath caught. Kale. Let me share it, he said. Like before. She shook her head. It could kill you. It already did once, he said with a faint smile. What's one more time? And before she could stop him, he took her hands in his. The energy surged between them, wild, golden, unstoppable. The ground split, light bursting upward in a pillar that reached the heavens. The valley became a sea of radiance. Kale felt his body burning, but he held on. Rhea. Focus it, anchor it. I can't. Yes, you can. You're not alone. Her scream echoed through the light. Then, slowly, the chaos began to soften. The gold turned to pale silver, the flames cooling into calm. The pillar narrowed, then folded into a single point between them. When it was over, Kale was kneeling in the dust. The valley was silent again. The temple lay in ruins. And Rhea stood before him, human, breathing, alive. He stared, hardly believing. Rhea. She looked down at her hands, ordinary now. The light's gone. No, he said, rising. It's just where it belongs. She frowned. Where? He touched her chest, just above her heart. Here. Balanced. Mortal. Tears filled her eyes. I thought I'd lost this forever. You almost did, he said. Next time, let someone else save the world. She laughed through her tears, the sound soft and real. Then you'd be out of a purpose. Not if my purpose is you. They returned to Illyrian weeks later. Word spread quickly that the sanctuary had returned, not as a goddess, but as a woman of flesh and blood. People greeted her not with worship but joy. She spent her days walking among them, teaching peace, rebuilding, reminding them that light lived in everyone. At night, she and Kale sat beneath the stars. The sanctuary star still shone, though dimmer now, its brilliance scattered among countless smaller lights. Rhea leaned her head on his shoulder. Do you think it'll last this time? Yes, he said quietly. Because now the light isn't something to follow. It's something to live. She smiled, watching the stars ripple across the sky. A world rebuilt by balance. And by love, he added. Rhea laughed softly. Careful, Your Majesty. The poets will steal that line. Let them, he said. It's true. The wind carried the scent of blooming night flowers. The city hummed with distant music. Above them, the constellations shimmered, no longer symbols of loss, but of return. And as the night deepened, the light they had once fought to save shone quietly within them, both steady, human, eternal. And that, brave soul, is where our tale leaves us, for now. If this story stirred your heart, lit your imagination, or left you wanting more, don't let the magic fade. Hit subscribe, ring that bell of destiny, and join our fellowship of dreamers as we journey into the next legend together. Your story begins with a single click. Will you answer the call?